so much.
Hello and welcome. This is Rugby Nation on Rugby.com.au. I'm Nick McArdle. Waratahs young gun Will Harrison isn't far away, and with me again this week is Rugby.com.au's Beth Newman. Beth, welcome to you.
Thanks, Nick. Another big weekend of footy behind us. Exciting to be back chatting.
Exactly right. To be talking about some footy and not everything going on around it. That is spot on. Now, there's plenty to talk to Will Harrison about, of course, and we'll do that shortly. But it's been fascinating this week to read the speculation about what rugby might look like next year and even in the years beyond that. And if there is a Trans-Tasman comp, the Kiwis apparently might only want 2 or 3 Australian teams. What have you made of all of that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate, and it just keeps coming up, doesn't it? Whenever there's, talk about what Super Rugby might look like in the years to come and where the best fit might be for each nation, it's this Trans-Tasman idea is always something that, Australia and New Zealand seem to admit that they need each other, but, how much they need each other kind of differs. And New Zealand take this high ground often, and we've seen a few people from across the ditch, take this position of, they've had such success at international level and Super Rugby that they can kind of dictate terms a little bit. And it was interesting actually to hear Hamish McLennan, Rugby Australia's chairman, come out on the weekend and describe the relationship as this kind of master-servant relationship. And sometimes that's what it feels like, I think, for, a lot of Australian rugby fans. And I think, moving forward, Rugby Australia is trying to get this broadcast deal done for 2021 and beyond, and the competition structure is obviously critical to that, and they're keen to keep 5 Australian teams if they can. If we're not going to stay with the Super Rugby model that was planned for 2021, and with travel restrictions, that looks really unlikely. So if there is a chance to move, they want to try and keep as many Australian teams as possible. But then that question of depth just keeps coming up, and we hear it all the time. And Steve Hansen was someone who spoke about it this week, and it's all that to and fro in the politics, and everyone kind of getting their pot shots out, and adds a lot of interest. But it's a really critical debate for the game to have, and it will be really pivotal in the future of Australian rugby especially.
Yeah, no doubt. And in a sense, it is so critical, right down to the point of really about the future of the game and whether the game can exist at a professional level going forward. That's the decision has to be got right this time. It feels like that moment in time. You mentioned Steve Hansen chiming in with something along the lines of, us Kiwis don't owe Aussies anything. He reckons the Kiwis are still dirty about Australia going it alone for the 2003 World Cup. And then you've got John O'Neill comes in over the top and says, Steve, you weren't even there. You don't know what's going on. It's actually been quite entertaining to follow all of this.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like, you want to have that sort of discussion and debate. And it's interesting. It seems to always be the way that 2003 decision comes up whenever there's a little bit of tension between Australia and New Zealand, and they're never quite gotten over it. And then there was also, the 2011 World Cup where Australia, put their support behind Japan. And there's all this, years and years of tension between the two nations on and off the field. And even current All Blacks coach Ian Foster was quick to jump in this week as well, and talking about the shape of a new competition and saying, we're not a charity. We can't just have teams in for the sake of it. They've got to be competitive, and they've got to be financially viable. So even people who are currently big power brokers in the game are weighing in, and it's good to see that sort of debate play out, I think, and it shows that people care.
Yeah, I care passionately. There's no doubt about that. And even in the last, 24 hours or so, you've had Rod Kafer chiming in with saying, we shouldn't be afraid to go it alone. Let's do this thing on our own. Let's cast the Kiwis adrift. So yeah, there's going to be so much chat about this over the coming weeks because, as I said, it is this moment in time. It is a decision that has to be done right along the lines of what does the game look like in the future. All right, let's bring in our guest this week. He's one of Australia's brightest young talents. He is also one of the stars of the new Re-Engage series on Rugby.com.au. From the Waratahs, Will Harrison, welcome to Rugby Nation. How are you finding it, Will, this Super Rugby caper? You look very much at home.
Yeah, Nick, I'm really enjoying myself. It's obviously really exciting to be able to have a local derby every week, and these new rules. It's an exciting concept, and I know all the boys are really hungry to keep improving each week in this comp. And had a good win on the weekend against the Force, so hopefully we can build that in this week against the Brumbies.
Yeah, how important was that for you guys to have a win, and also, I guess, have a win like that where you were down a little bit and able to fight your way back?
Yeah, Beth, obviously a massive confidence booster. I felt like the first week against the Queensland Reds, we played really good brand of footy, but you can't expect to win a game when you give away 19 penalties. And yes, in the week, we really worked hard in our discipline. And then we worked really hard, to be honest, these last 2 months over COVID, and we're building really nicely. And I think if you look back on our previous games earlier in the year, we'd lose the second half. We give away a lot of points, and just to be down 14-0 and then keep them scoreless in that back end of the game is a huge confidence booster for us in our D, and then to go away with an attack massive.
Well, it's hard to imagine a more crazy year in which to make your Super Rugby debut and really hit the big time. You made that debut against the Crusaders in New Zealand, head-to-head with Richie Mo'unga. It must seem like a lifetime ago now, but how was it on that night?
Yeah, Nick, to be honest, it was really exciting. I went there with the boys, and everyone was really excited. They pumped me up for the whole week, and I went there with a lot of confidence. And obviously, versing Richie Mo'unga is really surreal. I remember the first scrum against him, I was looking at him, and I was looking outside, and there was Jack Goodhue, and I was like, well, what is going on here? It was a great game. You know, Nelson, the crowd there was unreal, and it was a really cool it was almost like playing Coogee over with grandstands, the setup in Nelson. So I felt right at home, and yeah, it was good fun.
Has that been the biggest kind of pinch yourself moment this year, do you think, playing against someone like Richie? Or has there been other moments where you're just like, kind of, how is this my life, I guess, this year?
Yeah, I guess all those sort of matchups, you sort of pinch yourself, like playing James O'Connor, John O'Lance, all those sort of blokes, Matt Tamua. You sort of just like, what's going on? Like, I've dreamed my whole life of being on the big stage, and you go to the games when you're younger, and you're thinking, there's no way I'll be out there one day. And now you're running out for your warm ups, and you're looking at little kids, and you're like, this is crazy. So yeah, it's definitely a pinch yourself sort of year, and it's been such a cool experience for me.
Then you were just finding your feet, really, and then the season was shut down. And as you explain in your episode of that Re-Engage series, which we're now seeing on Rugby.com.au, that shutdown maybe wasn't such a bad thing for you. You worked on a bit, and you feel you've come back bigger and better.
Yeah, definitely, Nick. It gave me a lot of time to reflect on my individual game, and then obviously as a team, we weren't, as an organisation, I guess, we weren't really where we wanted to be. So the coaches worked really hard on improvements we could make. And then obviously as myself, I watched a lot of footy from our earlier games than other teams overseas and stuff, so where I can pinch a bit of stuff where I needed to work on my game. And then obviously having a lot of time to just work on my own skill, a lot of kicking, had a good strength set up in my backyard and stuff. So I really knuckled down and used that time as it needed to. So I've definitely come to this comp feeling a lot more confident and comfortable out there in the middle.
Saw during the shutdown, I know Chris Whitaker was showing you guys the backs, some stuff from like the Champions Cup final and that sort of thing. Like what other things did you guys get a chance to really break down? Was there anything that you really picked up during that time from, other teams?
Yeah, I guess Wits had us watching a whole lot of different footy to grab different perspectives. Like we watched lots of World Cup games, Six Nations, as you said, club rugby overseas, and trying to get a real gas because they play rugby is played differently everywhere. You know what I mean? So I guess as a game controller, I try to look at a lot of different tens and different scenarios, whether the game's wet, dry, the conditions and stuff. So I just grabbed a bit of everything and then had a good discussion with Wits and a lot of the other boys. And I guess it just grew your rugby brain a bit and picked at each other. And I guess one thing we've really tried to bring on in this block is playing what we see. And that time where we had time to have chats and those different conversations really pushed us where we want to get to. So it's definitely been a positive break for me.
Well, who are the guys that you do take bits and pieces from? I mean, not necessarily heroes. I think that's kind of a different category. But in terms of who you think is the role model for the perfect 10 at the moment, who do you take bits and pieces from?
I think there's a lot of different players to take from. Obviously, growing up in the early 2000s, you look at players like Johnny Wilkinson and Dan Carter, who are natural controls of the game. And then obviously working the last couple of years with Nard and KB, I grabbed a lot from their game and they really helped me out. Obviously, KB is really off the cuff and plays what he sees, which I like to play as well. And then Nard was really controlling. And I guess having those two different footballers helped me out. I guess I took a lot from their game. And then at the moment, you got blokes like Richie Mwanga, you got Barrett, and you've got Owen Farrell, who are really stepping up as the dominant tens in the world at the moment. So I guess watching a lot of their footy and seeing what they're doing in different scenarios helps me out.
You mentioned obviously Bernard and KB, both not at the TARS anymore. Is there kind of, obviously it's always good to have mentors and people to help you, but is there a bit of a sense that, now this is the time for you to kind of put your stamp on this team now that they're gone, you have a little bit of, freedom in that sense, I guess?
Yeah, definitely, Beth. I guess it's a bit of a different setup there at the moment. A lot of young boys coming through, but you've still got your old heads like you got Carmichael there, you got Hoops there, Simo. So I guess as a game leader, I've had to step up, and I've really enjoyed that role where I've having to speak to the boys more often, and definitely it's a lot different to where I was say last year. And I feel like in that sense, I'm growing every week. I'm watching my games. I'm seeing there's a mistake here and there, but I'm learning from those mistakes, and like I said, growing each week.
Well, I think Beth wrote something like this in a story a week or so ago about the different makeup of the Waratahs this year. In past years, it's just, it's a lineup that's been stacked with Wallabies, and whether the team is winning or losing, there is always pressure on them to succeed and expectation to succeed. Does it feel a little bit different because there are so many young players this year that, no organisation wants to go through a rebuild, but maybe the pressure's off a little bit? Does it feel like that within the team?
I feel like there's always pressure revolved around the Waratahs because, like you said, there's been such success over their whole time being in Super Rugby. But yeah, this year's a bit of a different setup. We've got a lot of young players coming through and earning their stripes in Super Rugby AU, and I think the pressure's still there, to be honest, but I don't really like to buy into that. I think it's time to really knuckle down, and we've got a good squad there, and I know there's exciting things on the way, and we're growing each week. So there's always pressure involved with professional sport, and it's just something you got to deal with as an individual and as a club. And at the moment, I think we're really doing that. We just want to express ourselves on the footy field and hopefully get results to the fans.
You were part of that junior Wallabies squad last year. They obviously did, so well at the World Championships, probably, about a year ago, almost to the day now. That group has come through into Super Rugby this year and has been so impressive across the board. Like, is that, you talk about the pressure and the, dealing with expectations and things like that. Is that expectation of winning something that you guys have really brought through from that experience and that success?
Yeah, 100%. I think from that group, it's almost like we have a will to win. We want to go and win championships. We want to win Bledisloes. We want to win World Cups. So, I mean, no one likes losing, and we've got a stack of blokes at the Waratahs who have had success in junior ranks and also had success at the 20s last year. And I guess even though we're losing games and teams are losing games, it's part of footy. You do want to win, and we're in this comp, I guess, not to rebuild, as you were touching on before, Nick. We're there to actually have a real crack, and we've definitely got the players and the youth coming through to do that. So, yeah, 100%.
And you've got Jason Gilmore on board now. So your coach from the under-20s on board as defence coach now at the TARS. How's that been, and how's that changed the dynamic, him knowing you guys so well?
Yeah, Gilly had a immediate impact on the squad entirely, not just the 20s boys. Obviously, I've worked with him for the last 2 years with the 20s setup, and he's such a good coach. He leads from the front, and he just puts simple processes in place that in your D you need, and you almost just need that mentality where you know what you need to do each week that's going to build your strong defence. And he gets along with all the boys. He knows how to, I guess, create such a strong, a good environment to be around. So I've really enjoyed working with Gilly. I know he's worked with a lot of boys as well, the Reds, and coming through the 20s in the last couple of years. So everyone respects him, and he's doing such a great job in terms of our results early in the year to where we are now.
And he's always been such a big driver of culture and stuff. You said that a lot during the Junior Wallabies and that sort of thing. Like how has he maybe brought that into the Waratahs environment?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to touch on before. I just couldn't think of the word culture, but yeah, it's really simple. You know what I mean? And he connects with his players. He has a real care about him. Working with players who aren't necessarily in the 23. And I know as a player, if you're not in the squad, it's really hard because you want to play footy. And he's a bloke who will get around to everyone no matter what, and he's always looking to improve your game. And he doesn't do it in a way where it's if you make a mistake, he's going to roast you for it. He's just there to look after you and wants you to improve, and he'll do anything, I think, for you. And I think that's across the board at the Waratahs. We've got a really strong culture at the moment where our coaches are really caring and want to look after us, and it's such a good place to be around.
Well, speaking of coaches, we had Dave Rennie on Rugby Nation a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was only a matter of days after you'd spoken at a media conference how you'd been in touch with him on WhatsApp. I think you described him as a cool dude or something, which he was quite thrilled about. I've got to say, he was very happy to hear that. But what's it been like to be able to have contact with the national coach? He's obviously seeing you as a player of interest. He wants to influence your career. How's that been for a young bloke to have that sort of, I don't know, mentoring, I guess?
Yeah, Nick, it's obviously pretty weird, to be honest. When I first got in contact with Dave, I was like, this is happening. It was a bit of a shock to the system. But like I said, Dave is a really good bloke, and he just wants to build your game. You know what I mean? As a young 10, there's a lot of things you can really work on, and he's just really driving on the things that I think I need to improve on each week. And I guess having the opportunity to contact him when I need to, it's such a surreal thing. As a footballer, you don't really get the opportunity to have such a strong coach who can be so easily contacted. And he's what type of bloke who's happily, like I said, I think I mentioned, he's happily to let me speak to him and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing that I'm going to be using on these next 10 weeks.
What kind of things specifically has he asked you to work on, in your chats with him?
Yeah, I think as I touched on before, it's just my controlling the side and asking for more players around me. It's hard when your side's going backwards and you're not getting much from the players outside you. But I think I've been fortunate to have really good players outside me who are offering me a lot more. And then it just talks about having a triple threat game, being able to kick, pass and run in the same action. So I'm working really hard at that at the moment, and hopefully I can express myself over the next 8 weeks or so.
Players always talk about being process driven, not wanting to get too far ahead of themselves. But when you think about, you got World Cup in 2023, British and Irish Lions in 2025, then maybe possibly, fingers crossed, a home World Cup in 2027. How do you not think about that as a young bloke who aspires to wear a gold jersey? How does that not creep into your thought process?
It definitely creeps in my thought process, mate. It's a massive motivation for me, to be honest. I see Australian rugby, it's a massive opportunity, and it gives you so much want to stay in it. Obviously, as a young fella, you grow up watching World Cups, you watch Bledisloe's, you watch the Lions tour, and obviously having a home World Cup, that's going to be, if we get that, fingers crossed, you said, that'd be unreal. And as a young footballer, it definitely makes me want to stay in rugby, Australian rugby especially, because there's such a big opportunity with a good young group of lads coming through. And hopefully, I haven't done really anything I want to do in my career here at the Waratahs and hopefully a Wallaby. So, I'm definitely seeing that as a massive motivation for me.
How old are you at the 2003 World Cup, Will? Do you remember any of that?
I
was 4 or 5, maybe.
I was 4, and I've got the long sleeve Wallaby jersey from the 2003 World Cup. I remember where I didn't take that off, to be honest, until it didn't fit me in about when I was 10. I worked at every training session when I was younger, and I actually watched a few games because they just had games on Fox Sports for a while at old hits, and could not believe Johnny Wilkinson just nailed that full goal. I'm still heartbroken over it. It was such a good game, and they had such a cool team. Obviously, Witts is with us at the moment. He was in that World Cup squad. So hearing stories about that definitely motivates you to stay in rugby, and hopefully in 2027 we get that opportunity to play in one and hopefully win one.
Just for the record, Will, I'm just thinking, so you were 4, 3, so, I'm thinking you were 1 at the Olympics in 2000. I'm just going to, when we finish here, I'm going to go and find a rocking chair and a pipe, and I'm just going to light the fire and sit back with a nana blanket. Don't worry about that. That's absolutely fine. My goodness, that's... there you go. Now, as I understand it, you got into some extracurricular activities. What are your loves outside of rugby that you were able to sort of take a bite out of when we were in lockdown and you had that bit of time on your hands? What do you get into?
Yeah, as I spoke about on that little episode last night with Rugby Australia, I'm a pretty keen surfer. I've always grew up in the water. My family's always been like down at Coogee Nippers and stuff, and then when I went to high school at Marsland in Year 7, my 2 best mates, they've always been keen surfers and really good surfers. So I guess I got into that hobby, and I've loved it ever since. And then this isolation period really gave me an opportunity to knuckle down on it, and I've definitely got the bug back again. Trying to get out in the water 3 or 4 times a week now, and I probably won't get out there this week. It's about 14 foot. It's a bit too big for me, but yeah, I really enjoyed surfing. And then another thing I actually did was a bit of yoga. My sister and my missus sent me set it up at home just to keep it clean up, and I was like, I'll give it a crack, and I really enjoyed it. Yes, you feel unreal afterwards, and it gives you a bit of time just to get on the flow and mellow out a bit. And yeah, that was my 2 main things I did. But yeah, it's a bit of a mad household here in isolation, so every time I got the opportunity to get out of it, I semi-did.
I understand your sister's doing her HSC, so I imagine you're walking around on eggshells most of the time, not wanting to offend anybody, just being really quiet.
Yeah, as I said, it's a hectic household. I had both my parents working from home. My brother actually just got a job during isolation, so he was working from home as well. And then my sister studying, so I was just trying to keep my distance and get out and do a bit more kicking than I probably should have been doing. But to be honest, we handled each other really well, and you could have really clashed there, and I guess we were stressing the family would, but we all chipped in and helped Mum out to keep her pretty mellow, and it was actually a really good time for us as a family.
Yeah, everybody's had to find a way, haven't they? Beth, what about the games this weekend? Will's Tars, they've got the Brumbies. I'm interested to see the battle of the 2 10s there. We'll ask Will about that. But Beth, how do you see that shaping up?
Yeah, it's going to be a cracker. I think yesterday the Brumbies guys were up, and Will Miller was saying he's expecting the Tars to be pretty stinging from that defeat earlier in the year. And I guess, Will, you can probably shed some light on that. Like, how is the mindset of the guys? Is that game from March still kind of in the back of your minds?
Beth, to be honest, not really. We watched a bit of that game the other day, and our first half was really good. I mean, to go in 14 all at the break, I felt like we were really dominating in our attack, and then it all went to bits in the second half a bit. And as I was touching on earlier, our second half's been a really big improvement in this second block, and our D as well. So we're definitely not leaking as many points as we were in that first block. So I guess we can take a lot of confidence out of what we're doing and previous encounters with the Brumbies. So the boys are going to be up and definitely ready to go on Saturday night.
And you and Noah, obviously, you know each other so well, to be playing against each other, and potentially that's the future of Australian rugby right there.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I played a lot of footy with Noah, obviously, in the schoolboys setup in 2017, and then last year with the under-20s. It's going to be exciting. He's obviously in red-hot form, playing with a lot of confidence. He's a really good bloke, so I enjoy every time I get to go up against him, and it's going to be a good contest, and hopefully I can get the nod up on top of him.
So that game's on the Saturday night, but on the Friday we've got the Reds playing the Force, and this should be a cracker. So many ex-Queensland players coming, back to Suncorp Stadium for the first time as the enemy. So it should be, and the Force showed us last week, as Will kind of mentioned, that they're pretty competitive in this competition. And Will, as a neutral observer, who do you reckon might take this one out?
Yeah, Beth, I think it's going to be a really interesting contest, as you touched on before. I was really impressed with the Force last week. Obviously, Jono Lance had him controlling the game really well in the first half, and then match fitness probably let them down a little bit, but I think they'll take a massive improve into this next week against the Reds. But then you see the Reds, I thought we had them dusted in the last 20, and then I thought they were gone for all money last week against the Rebels, but they just hang in there and they seem to win games. And Brad Thorne, I think, is doing a really good job down there. So it's going to be interesting. I'll go the Reds at home at Suncorp. It's a tough ask up there, but I don't think it'll be by much.
Will, great to catch up. And I would encourage Aussie rugby fans, if you want to get to know Will a little bit better, check out his episode Re-Engage on Rugby.com.au. Beth, it is a great campaign. Really good that fans can get the opportunity to get to know these guys, because you get the feeling they are going to be around for a little while.
Absolutely. We'll be rolling this out in 2027 when they're all the stars of the home World Cup campaign.
Exactly right. Hey, Will, thanks again. Beth, we'll see you next week. Look forward to your company as well next time on Rugby Nation. I'm Nick McArdle. Bye for now.